We are wonderfully at the gathering in a field near Swindon with Christian Vision for Men, and we have been in the mess tent, which is quite warm. But what's exciting me is getting to do some face-to-face interviews with actual, real, living, breathing people, which is fab. So I brought with me now John. Hello, John.
Hello.
So we met earlier, he did some live radio, because just to my right, which you can't see right now, we've got some remote control tanks. So let's just start there. Why have you brought tanks to a field near Swindon?
I got into radio control model tanks because it was something that I loved doing as a child, or would have done had I had the money. And as an adult, I do have the money to indulge the things that I always wished I had as a teenager. So I started collecting these tanks, and the collection got more and more out of hand. And then I had to think, right, I've got to do something with this. I can't just accumulate dozens of tanks. So I then had the idea of bringing them here. And that's been very well received. It's hugely popular. The activity's been running pretty much solid all afternoon. I've never seen it not busy all day.
Brilliant. Which is what you want to see. You don't want to be standing around. It's great for the guys who are just getting involved with it. Now, we were talking earlier about that, which I love. There's one part of that which I just wanted to touch on again, because I thought it would be good just to share once more, which is you can go to churches with tanks to engage with guys. Is that right? Did I remember this?
Absolutely. So one of the challenges that I find is I don't have any particular giftings traditional to church ministry. I'm not musical. I don't do children's work or anything like that. And there are some small niche things that I can do which are quite specialist and which are not covered by other people. And so, for example, I can use this activity, the radio control model tank battle, to reach guys who aren't interested in church stuff. They're not going to go to any church or Christian events, but they'd be up for doing something fun like this.
Yeah, I think if I knew your local church was doing something with remote control tanks, I would not be missing that. That would be in my diary, locked and loaded, with the notification saying, do not miss it. Because it's just, it's different, but it's also something which is going to grab people. And I love you saying that you got into it, you started collecting them, but actually when you were young you couldn't do that. So as you got older you have this collection. And I love how God used who you are, who he made you to be, to do something that's just an interest in one sense, but actually it's grown into something which is a passion, clearly, which can help you engage with people. So how often do you actually get to go to churches? Is it your local area? Do people know about this?
Well, I've only recently started offering it to churches, but this is the second time that we've come to the CVM gathering.
Yep.
And we did it for the first time 2 years ago, and it has grown substantially since then. I've got a lot more tanks and a lot more people, and we've got a whole engine room of people working on the tanks. We had a battle damage repair workshop all morning today because the tanks got battered last night. They were used so heavily. And so yeah, it's growing all the time, and it's a delight to be able to use my passion, my interest and my resources to do something useful. That's far better than me just indulging myself in my own sort of home and my own domain.
And that's the thing though, I always say that we're made on purpose with purpose. And you said that you didn't have any like traditional giftings for churches, but you clearly do, because the whole point for me, for church at least, is that we can engage with people in some way and tell something of our story, who God's made us to be, in order that we can actually engage with others. And there's always going to be some level of interest where, you know, we can kind of look at each other and think, yeah, this is where we're going to connect. But you're just connecting with guys with remote control tanks. The other thing which I wanted to talk about is, you mentioned something, and I thought, wow, that was almost in passing. I thought, well, that's fascinating, which is Christians in motorsport. Just tell us a bit about that.
I got involved with this nearly 25 years ago, actually, and it was purely focused on Formula One. So it was Padre and safety car driver Alex Ribeiro to the Formula One paddock. And then it sort of devolved into all aspects of motorsport, heavily mentored by the Americans. They have the whole Bible Belt culture and NASCAR in the Deep South, and they have chaplains who follow the series. They pray over the tannoy to the grandstands, which is amazing. And so we were really inspired by that, and we got the motor racing outreach guys to come over from the States. They gave us a training day, mentoring on how to be a chaplain in a motor racing environment to a circuit and to the staff and professionals and the general public, and it's just developed from there, really.
So what are you actually doing? Are you going now to meetings? Are you now a chaplain within a particular branch of motorsport, or is it just trying to get guys who are interested, or is it, you know, guys and girls as well?
there's all different elements to it. So it's supporting the individual clubman competitor so that he can spread the gospel and perhaps be a witness to his fellow competitors and people that he meets in his very localized thing, right up to the guy who works in Formula One and he's based in a team and working at the factory, and that's his workplace ministry effectively. And people who are very high profile drivers and competitors, and they can use that reach and influence and media profile to spread the gospel as well.
So you're not just, you know, doing Formula One only. There's going to be what, different branches of motorsport?
Absolutely, it's everybody at every level of motorsport in their particular their area. So that's their mission field, be they male, female, young or old, professional or amateur. That's their mission field, and only they can reach that mission field because we haven't got duplicate coverage here. You know, we've got to empower and equip everybody to do their bit in their area.
Where's faith for you? What was your upbringing? I mean, have you got your classic church background, which is probably what I had? Was it more kind of Paul, Damascus, Blight Lights? You know, what's your journey into faith?
Just a sort of village Anglican background growing up, and then I sort of came to faith as a teenager, going to a Christian Union. But it was a very quiet personal faith until I got to university and I joined the Christian Union. And then things started to develop. And over the years with the Armed Forces Christian Union and that sort of thing, it's developed into a more active and more profound faith, really. A more vibrant, day-to-day dynamic faith, I would say.
I love meeting people. I mean, my own background is I was brought up in really a kind of church family. We went to church, Anglican churches pretty much. So I was like 7, 8 years old in a Baptist church, and that was my upbringing. But my wife, she had a completely different experience. She was in Lyon in France, in very much not a Christian context, and yet it was, you know, bright light kind of thing. But we're all different, and we all come to God in different places, but he takes who we are for him, and I love what he's doing with you, either with remote control tanks, which is, you know, in a men's gathering like this, or with the Christians in motorsport. What is it you're enjoying at the gathering? I'm sort of going back into my mode of interviewing, gathering people, but what are you enjoying about being in a field near Swindon with 2,000 guys?
It's real guys doing real world stuff. So we are nothing special, we're just regular guys, members of the general public. There's no theologians here, no highbrow stuff. It's not aimed at you know, heavyweight Bible teaching and this sort of thing, which can be a bit off-putting for people who are not heavily into the Christian thing. It's very accessible, but it's just guys hanging out, having a good time, developing relationships, chewing the fat, having a barbecue, just enjoying the weekend, and that's what I love about it.
So let's just do this in two parts. Remote control tanks, how can people find out about who you are and where you are? I think you said you got a Facebook page?
That's right. If people search for Armour Dillo, 2 words, on Facebook, Armour as in tank armour, and Dillo, D-I-L-L-O. And that's how they can find us on social media.
Cool, and we'll link to that as well for people who are listening or watching. And then Christians in motorsport, how do people get hold of that? If they're, you know, whether they're a racing driver, whether they are in mechanics, whether it's just, you know, they're in the paddock doing whatever, how do they get hold of you?
Our website should be back online soon, which is christiansinmotorsport.org, or they can find us on Facebook just under Christians in Motorsport and connect with us from there.
And can I just say thank you for what you're doing, because remote control stuff, it might have I know people have an idea of what it is, but I just want to say thank you that I'm watching guys, because we're literally watching you from where we're sat here at the gathering. It's just wonderful to watch such a simple thing like a remote control car. These are tanks, and yet you're engaging people. And I loved when I saw people arriving to mark this out before I knew what it was, with a set of shears, and I'm thinking, I don't know what's coming, but I'm very excited and I want to see. So thank you for what you've done, because this is just brilliant.
Well, it's also about educating people in history as well, because we've got a whole important message for World War II. And there's a display there of World War II history material, and it starts to give people an appreciation for something that our grandfathers went through. And it's 80 years ago now. We just had the D-Day anniversary as well, and it's really important that we raise the profile of that to the general public.
Yeah, because I think, as we said before, we forget our history at our peril. I think you might have mentioned before that actually our grandfathers have us, but people below us now, they're 2 generations away, and we need them to remember. It matters.
and people can see straight away that a Sherman tank is the similar size to a Panzer IV, but they also see the huge size of a Tiger and a King Tiger, which were completely outclassing our Allied armour, and they get that impression visually in front of them straight away. So that's how it sort of spreads the message to people.
I love how much it's not just about, it's not a toy. I mean, yes, okay, maybe it's come off from a toy store, but I love it so much more than that, because actually it's also, it's history, it's education, it's engagement, and there's so much in just a remote control tank. I mean, I'm saying just very carefully, but it's just a remote control tank, and yet God's taken the passion of who you are to speak to people through your passions, your interest in who you are. And I love that. So thank you, and thank you for your time as well.
Not at all. Thank you.
We will link to those websites, so if you want to find out more about remote control tanks or Christensen Motorsport, check out the comments and you can find out more about John and the work he does, and maybe invite him to your men's group at your church